Hey everybody, welcome to the Dollar Store Dynasty. This is Sean. Uh, in this episode, I'd like to call Hogwash and Horseplay. And I guess in this episode, I'd just kind of like to look at some of the things. It's a little bit inspired by a video, a channel by Rantan, where he kind of talked about his experience at the Shaolin Temple. He studied there as a monk, and how a lot of people have this perception of things being very idyllic, you know. You certainly get a lot of that when people talk about China, and certainly as you see in the media these days, China are very sort of aggressive about projecting that, and in terms of like the situation in Hong Kong, how they're trying to sort of embed themselves in Western culture so they can sort of project their that idyllic sort of idea of China even more so, and they're very aggressive about it, and something to be concerned about because there's certainly, I mean, you do see some of it in Western companies, but it's very disconcerting when a country like say China, says, okay, you have to give us a 5-star review. All of our companies get 5-star, and all of your companies don't. We don't care if you get 3 or but you cannot say 4-star. You have to say very great or excellent. You no longer can say good or okay or not very good. Those words are unacceptable. And that's certainly a fanaticism that is that becomes sort of the head of the dragon in a lot of ways, and the rest of the body just kind of functions as a surrogate of that head. So it's something to be really sort of be very sort of aware of. But I appreciated this fella, Rantan. He did his video about things not being as idyllic as they're portrayed to be. And I kind of want to talk about some of those things also in this video. And speaking of idyllic, in the background you see some video here of my trip to Nanjing just recently. I had finally decided to go out to Nanjing and see if I could see Li Xing. I did return to China these last few years, and hopefully in the anticipation of seeing her again. I didn't return to China never to see her again. And my feeling was that any person who is sincere in their relationships, who has a moral compass, would see that that gesture, coming across the world and sort of giving years of your life to someone that you had, initiated a relationship with, and to at least give them a consideration of doing that. Certainly I would. I certainly would weigh. My moral compass would dictate to me that I do owe somebody an obligation. If I was in a relationship with them and they were making a tremendous effort and were of no, without any animosity, there were no threat. There was nothing threatening about the person, that I would, at least engage them on that level if they, felt a need for it. And she is a person who doesn't feel that way for some reason. I can only sort of like, I've been in China a long time, and I've had relationships with police officers. I've had relationships with professors. I've had relationships with CCP girls. I've had relationships with just co-workers. So it's not like I don't understand that there are certain agendas in China that completely lack a moral compass. And one of the things it's kind of always been sort of a really strong negative aspect of my relationship is that I was always very straightforward in my intentions. Being older, I'd always made complete. I always made them aware that I was looking for a family, and it affected my decisions in those relationships. If I felt that I didn't think that the relationship was going to be pursued, or was going to be, I was going to be able to meet the things I wanted in a relationship, I wouldn't pursue it. It's kind of beguiling to me that like you get to a point where because I had to make those decisions based on the things that I was looking for in a relationship, and these are things that are very simple aspects of relationship and are acknowledged in Chinese culture as kind of essential, I would say, to relationships, rather than just kind of a frivolous one-night stand and just kind of let's have fun and enjoy it, play around. And China isn't really like that. When they think of relationships, they're very focused on keeping it, to exploit the essential parts of it as soon as possible. Like making babies is a big thing, and I'll talk a little more about that when I talk about this idyllic concept of the one-child or two-child policy. That is quite a misconstrued and misperceived. But they're very aggressive about here's why a man and woman come together, and that's after that, once they satisfy that, we could care less. And here I'm a person who was raised in the West who says, yeah, but that's a really serious gesture. You just don't knock babies out because you can knock babies out. And that's kind of where me and China have there's a lot of discrepancies between the West and the East on that one right there, because that's probably the biggest currency in China is making babies. It's the essential currency of this culture, making babies. But they never kind of consider, well, how are we going to pay for this kid? What if I can't put food on his plate? What if I don't have a job? What if they just kind of figure they'll work that out through the head of the dragon, and that's that's a big problem. Whereas in the West, you're individuals. You're supposed to say, hey, not the time to have a child. I want a child, but I know it's not. That's not the entire reason I'm on this planet. So it's a different head of the dragon on our side of the equation or the discourse. But anyway, I'll talk a little more about that as I get into this. But like I said, in the background here, you're going to see some video of my trip to Nanjing. But let's talk first about, and I'll maybe talk about that trip at the end. Let's talk about some of these things that I kind of see. The perception is kind of skewed to paint a very favorable sort of regard when there's very practical elements. And even if you're a Chinese person and you're listening to this video, most of my contentions are very practical ones. And these are the kind of contentions or criticism, or whatever I want to call them. These are the kinds of things that you would say, okay, here's something we can work on. Like for instance, I'd like to talk a little bit about the cash pay, the WeChat pay. There's some problems there. The main one being is that it's dependent on the internet, which is dependent on electric power, and your connectivity is not always there. So what happens is you'll get to you'll be in a supermarket line and you'll get to the register, they'll ring up all your stuff, and then you'll be sitting there like, the internet's I'm not getting the connection here. So can everybody just hold on and wait for me to get this connection? And usually there's that very awkward sort of aspect to it then, because people get very impatient very quickly here. Very, very often they'll give you the dirty look, because your connectivity isn't there. They'll give you that dirty look like, John, they're holding all this up, they're holding up all this progress, and it's really, it's your services that are holding it up, actually. But, so you come into that quite often, and not only that, and where it really becomes apparent is places like the bus, where, people will queue up to get on a public bus, and they'll get up to the bus terminal and they'll be trying to swipe their phones, and it won't read it, so they'll just stand there, And this is kind of a quick transaction for a bus, because the bus driver has a schedule to keep. So he's trying to close the doors on people, and people are trying to push in, and it becomes a little bit frantic in that situation. And for that reason, I use coins just because it's a much quicker transaction. If I give you something, you have it in your hands, and you're not waiting for it to be processed, or you're not kind of going through a third party as this electronic cash system does. So it's just one of those things that I find people not really sort of addressing, or they don't really sort of talk about but it's so frequent. It's so apparent that this happens a lot. Another thing about this is that there's quite a few verification sort of screens that you have to go through to process the payment. There's like 3 or 4 screens, and you have to sort of verify it. It's always kind of you have to always kind of sit there and wait to see that the transaction has gone through. And there's always a little bit of uncertainty that you don't have with that kind of paper and cash. And of course, there's that aspect that it's just an electronic transaction, and somewhere along the line, somebody could manipulate those numbers a little more than saying, well, here's this amount of this, there's this many dollars or this many yen, and what's the rest of it? Or, why is there more than this what should be there? So anyway, that's one of the aspects. Another aspect of that cashless is that, like the hard currency has disappeared very quickly. I would say a worrisome degree of almost a little bit too impromptu, a little too hurried, because coins are very difficult to find. It's a huge inconvenience. Like I said, I take a bus here in Xinjiang now, and I use the coins to pay for my transportation. But what has happened that they've sort of adopted this idea that we are a cashless society now, is that they've rushed to sort of take all the coins out of circulation and minimize the circulation of coins, obviously to kind of save raw materials. And so they're hard to find. It's hard to find in the yuan coin or the kwai coin. Not only that, they've introduced a new one. So if you're not, if you're the old China hand or the old Chinese guy who still pays by that old way of paper and coin to be so outdated, there's a new coin now, and a lot of people aren't even aware of it. There's a smaller kwai now. It's about the size of a nickel, where the previous kwai was about the size of a quarter. And so a lot of people aren't, I can only ascertain that is an attempt to kind of save resources by making that smaller coin, and the assumption that they're going to be less prevalent, they're going to be less prominent uses of currency in China from here on out. But I definitely will, commend the idea that there's a more accurate, accounting going on with the cashless society. At least a more immediate accounting, because when I first got to China in 2008, it was a common practice to round down prices, at places like McDonald's, places like KFC, places like, these are international companies. These are companies that really sort of rely on accurate accounting because it kind of figures into their stock and it figures into global currencies, And what would happen is you would, say you're buying a shirt at Walmart, and the price is 20 yuan and 30 mao, or 30 jiao, which is like $20.30, sure. So you get to the register and they ring it up, they scan it, it says 20.30 on the register, and the cashier just asks for 20 yen. You give them 20 and they give you your receipt for 20.30 and you walk out of the store. But I was always astonished by that. I was always like, how are they getting away with this? Because it's just I don't know why they do it. Certainly it's easier, it's easier to calculate that, but you have it. I calculate, it's certainly easier to figure out what you owe, or giving back the, what their change is, And you might come across as being generous or something like that to the general population, but I was just like, there's so much money being skimmed off here. If you talk about all the transactions in China and all through all the cities, if this is a common practice, there's so much money being skimmed off of doing business of these legitimate transactions. So you don't want to talk about fuzzy math. Talk about the carton of cigarettes falling off the truck. There you have it. But so electronic cash was kind of a solution to that. Every transaction, the jiao is all figured into it. And it's not. like in China, there's also that sort of, there was a lot of people buy things in alleys. They buy them in the open air markets and things like that. And a lot of times it's kind of, they like that idea of being able to sort of set a price based on the customer, not so much based on the value of the product, which is kind of, which is the worst, kind of the worst aspect of those transactions. You're just kind of waiting for somebody to take advantage of constantly. And China's very much like that. If you look about China, they're always, they're a kind of place that wants to sell you something. Just about a lot of sort of relations here. They're trying to sell you something, and they view you as a individual customer, and they're trying to size you up and see how much they can get out of you. Specifically, that certainly factors into your employment in China and your relationships in China also, especially with the CCP girls. Talk about that in a bit. So yeah, that's one thing that's painted as it's very idyllic. All these tech people are like, wow, all this information, all this data and stuff. But there's still a lot of data that's not being being considered. You're not considering the manipulations of that data. You're not considering the implications of the technology either in a very practical environment. Also, another aspect of China that's kind of painted as idyllic is taobao. And I've heard of comparisons to Amazon. And I worked for Amazon for a short period. And I feel that Amazon is a superior company. Certainly many Chinese would disagree with me there. But the thing about Amazon is, and this is a key difference, Amazon delivers to your door. Amazon has its own delivery service. Taobao does not have that because you don't have a residential address. Well, you have a residential address, but you don't have a residential sort of mailbox. So things are not delivered to your door. What happens is, and because Taobao does not have a centralized delivery service, it's there's multiple delivery agents, so you never know exactly who. When to order something, you'll have a tracking that tells the delivery agent of the package. But it could be any one of many different delivery services, right? And each of those delivery services will have, say, a lockbox that they have to sort of, they have to work with the developer of your building or your apartment complex. They have to figure out how they're going to, set up their delivery lockbox service, And sometimes they work it out that they can have it in the lobby. Sometimes they work it out that they can have it around the corner or outside. And all that, all that there is an inconvenience because, and this is one of the worst things that happens, is that very often I'll be coming home from work, I'll be expecting a package, I'll be coming home from work, and I'll, walk past those boxes, I'll get up to my apartment, I'll take my shoes off, take my coat off, then ding, oh, your box is here, Oh, great, so put my hat back on, put my coat back on, put my shoes back on, go outside, go down the elevator, walk across oh, it's raining out, I gotta get my umbrella, get wet, go over the lockbox, punch in my code, get my package, go all the way back upstairs and start the whole process of settling in again. But it's something that, the worst part about it is it just so frequently happens, like just when I get through the door, just when I'm about to settle in, or I'm starting to do something, ding, go get your package. I hate that. Also with these lockboxes, sometimes they don't open. Sometimes they don't open, or they're in the wrong lockbox or something like that, or the wrong apartment building. So you have to go through that whole inconvenience of calling this third party and saying, okay, I can't get into it. Sometimes through, they can trigger it automatically, the box, to see if it'll open up. Other times, it's just the whole process of trying to track down and trying to figure out what's wrong, why you can't get your package out of this machine, basically. And and that requires calling a number. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this, ding. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for ding. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for this, ding. Please wait. And it's just this long inconvenience that third-party aspect of Taobao is inferior to Amazon in that case, because Amazon will bring it right to your door, leave it there. That's all there is to it. You open the door, there's your package. And also, there's no guarantee with Taobao. They are quick. I'll give them that. They are, it's amazing the amount of distance that can be covered in, say, 1-2 days, just for an item. That is quite, it's quite amazing. But it's not guaranteed, by any means. Like Amazon, if you have the Prime membership, it's guaranteed that you get the item, you get compensated for that somehow. Whereas with Taobao, you don't have that. Also, with Taobao, there's kind of you have to verify that you received it. This is not something that you have to do with Amazon. Whenever you receive an item, you have to go back into your order and make sure that you verify that you've received it. Getting a refund is a little bit awkward because you usually have to contact the seller and have a conversation with them, whereas in Amazon you don't really have to do that. It's just going to press the button, press your reason, and process the refund. And very often they will just say keep it and then send you a new one or something like that. So I do find Amazon a better sort of delivery service in those regards. So it's not as Taobao's not as idyllic. Another aspect that I find not very idyllic that is kind of sold is bike rentals. I hear very much, oh yeah, but there is so much waste being created, and a bike is not something that should be perceived or sort of contrived as being something that's disposable, and that is exactly what I see happening. Granted, they are used quite frequently. But people will take it for one ride, and they'll just leave it wherever they are. You'll find bikes in the weirdest places, and it's almost impossible for them to retrieve all these bikes, So I would say, like, for every one bike they retrieve, they lose like 3 or 4 bikes, that just end up in a ditch, rusting out, and getting drove over or something like that. There's so many bikes that are just garbage. Hanging around China because somebody rented it for one ride, and they left it wherever they left it wherever they locked it up and left it wherever they got off it. It's amazing, and a bike is not, a bike is something you purchase one and you should have it for like 3 years of your life, So I don't see how it's practical, like, not to be renting a bike for one ride, when it's more practical just to buy a bike, and take care of it. A little bit of maintenance, you can keep a bike, for a very long period of time. Whereas in China, they're just stacking them up and throwing them all over the place. You see bikes all over the place, and just junk bikes everywhere. I can't imagine that they're saving money, that they're making a profit doing it. Something else that is kind of perceived as idyllic, that's not quite so. I'm checking my notes here. I would say Chinese food, and this is something that Rantan also mentioned in his videos. A lot of people are like, oh, Chinese food is this wonderful, so great and delicious. Certainly, some of it is really excellent. There's some dishes in China that are not good socks off, right? But a lot of it is not. And a lot of it is just kind of this random sort of combination of items that have a very basic taste that it's not anything that sort of, seems like a very well thought out cuisine, that takes into consideration tastes buds or anything like that. And unfortunately on my trip here to Nanjing, I ended up with one of those dishes it's a common dish, it's like rice noodles and bok choy and those little puff balls, I can't think of what they're called. Those little like fried puff balls and things like No, it was terrible. I was just so bland, and it wasn't a very good meal at all. But it's considered kind of Chinese cuisine. I had some good dishes there also. Hopefully I'll talk about that when we look at this video a little bit more closely. But that's certainly something that's, everybody talking, oh, Chinese food. It's not. It's also very oily. They use the oil in a lot of things. In terms of health, I can see how that sort of suggests it's very healthy food. A lot of it's very random. There's a lot of very sort of odd fried things here that certainly here in Nanjing, we're in this area, in the Dong area here, there's a lot of fried foods that I relate more to like carnival, like a carnival midway. Just kind of these odd combinations of fried foods. Yeah, that's what that is. Oh, okay. And the child policy, yeah, that's not. A lot of people, I remember growing up and saying about one child policy. When I first got to China in 2008, I quickly, noticed that there was like brothers and sisters. There were families of 2 children quite frequently. There's quite a number of them in the community that I was kind of surprised by that, certainly. So I immediately, began to sort of observe and assess that the child policy wasn't taken that seriously. I did quickly understand, though, like that is one of the sort of essential aspects of Chinese culture. Like I was saying, they are very sort of a form of influence or mobilize. Mobilizing that population in a similar way that, I would say a hive of ants do. It's very similar to that. And they're very sort of aggressive about that. And with this new two-child policy, it's just sort of, it's ridiculous how quickly everyone had 2 children. And it's just like automatic. It's not like, it's like their first sexual experience. You gotta have your children. This is your first time having sex, boom, have your kids, 1, 2, and then we don't care. You shouldn't have more, but if you do have more, we'll work with you. We'll work about that. So you do see a lot of families now with 3 or 4 children. We'll be lenient with you because we understand, the power of, bringing a human life, having another human life to be an asset. We understand the value of that, so we'll be more lenient with you. And that idea of like putting that value and regarding that as an asset is something that's really sort of negative, is really sort of, I feel, assaulted on my person. It's something that's been sort of perceived and sort of analyzed and processed in my relationships with a lot of Chinese women here. And like I said, they're trying to always kind of sell you, trying to figure out how they can make a better deal for themselves. So yeah, it's just openly kind of the 2-child policy. It's there's never a thought like, what is this kid gonna, what's this kid gonna do for the, it's just like he's gonna do something that's going to benefit us, and the head of the dragon will figure that out. Food deliveries has become quite prevalent in China. When I came here in 2008, it was, it just didn't really kind of exist to the extent that it does now, where everybody, especially in the big cities, when you're in the working classes, in the white collars, I guess you'd say, everything is delivered. Every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast to your apartment, like even if it's just a couple steamed buns and a dojang, they deliver it. It's like I can't kind of grasp the idea of like, wow, you're so dependent on something to bring you. You're so dependent on other people to provide for you. Just basic, basic little substance. Like, would it kill you to take one trip to the market? Put some stuff in, like, why is the concept of a refrigerator still can't quite grasp that. but they are very, and I guess the idea is you're giving people jobs, and I would say a lot of delivery people has become, being a food delivery person is actually quite a lucrative and quite a substantial job. It's not really something where you can make a lot of money in China if you're sort of ambitious about your job, or even if you're not. I would say it's a very sort of common way of sustaining your family. In China, just being a delivery person. It's nothing to be ashamed of by any means. I'm just kind of amazed at the extent that people rely on delivered food. It's really just sort of kind of astounding to me. A breakfast snack, and like a light breakfast, you need to have that delivered. Where I live currently, in Jinjiang, and I have a few points to talk about there. The delivery is, it's not as common. I was kind of disappointed I couldn't get pizza out here. Pizza Hut wouldn't deliver this far out, but you still get some services will deliver out here. But I was hoping that Pizza Hut did. They didn't, though, so I ended up having to go to this whole, the students that I had a presentation with my students here. They wanted to do a presentation, and they wanted something a little different. So they kind of had some students that that weren't they were volunteered for it, but they took part in it, and we put together this little performance of a poem, and I wanted to do something special for them because they definitely put an effort in. But maybe they didn't really want to do it, but they did a really good job with it, I thought, and I was pretty happy with how that worked out. And I wanted to do something special for them to show them that I appreciated them making the effort. So I decided to have a pizza party for them, and that was a little bit difficult because I ended up, I was hoping Pizza Hut would deliver out here. It did not, so I had to go into the city, which is maybe an hour away, 40 minutes away. Get the pizzas, come back here, try and figure out how to keep them warm, do my classes, come back, get the pizza, run them over to school, and we had our pizza party, and that was cool. I'm happy to do things like that. And certainly these students, they did a good job with it. I was pretty happy how that worked out. I don't know if I'll get a chance to do that again. What else? Jinjiang, since I'm talking about it, some things that are kind of cool about Jinjiang that are different is the construction here. I've noticed that they kind of respect the residents in this community in terms of construction. Like typically in China, if somebody needs to do construction over the apartment over your head, or on your roof, or on your floor, underneath you, they will just come and do it any time of the hour. And often you'll have people hammer drilling because everything is concrete here. So they got to rip a tile or something like that. They'll just put a hole in the wall to run a line somewhere. It'll just be hammer drilling, like 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, whenever it's convenient for them to do so. And there's little sort of repercussions for them doing it, just because it's accepted. It's like it's got to get done somehow at some point, and they just kind of expect people to bear with them. Here, though, I have noticed that the few times that people have done some work on the apartments in my immediate proximity, they've respected it. They've worked within respectable hours. They waited till 9 o'clock in the morning to start, and they were done by 6 o'clock, which is, kind of the zoning, the legalities of doing kind of construction in the United States fall into you're supposed to show that consideration to residents. And here it's just kind of I don't know why they did. I'm hoping it's because the community has addressed it at some point. Like I said, these apartment complexes, these communities kind of have their own sort of governing system. And there's a lot of older people living here and children and stuff like that. It's my hopes that they kind of came together and said, you know what, let's work this out. So, if you're going to do things like that, only between the hours. People need to get their rest. People need to be able to do things during the day. That being said, there is construction across the way. I guess it's over this way. That way. That goes on pretty frequently, but it's not intrusive. It's kind of far enough away that it's not intrusive. But that's a cool thing about here. Also, I find that they're not snobs out here. You know, like I was in Jiangsu for a long time, in Nanjing. You know, in Yixing, you get a lot of snobs. You get a lot of the CCP snobs. You get a lot of sort of wealthy snobs. A lot of people who think they're a lot more important than they really are. And I wrote down here, what you don't want is don't be an expert on somebody else's business. You know, try and be an expert on your own business. You know, these are people who are kind of experts on your business. Well, because they're trying to sell you something. You know, they figure the more people they can sell or take advantage of, that makes them even more, you know, an expert on other people. You know, and it's not. Just you're clueless about yourself because you have no moral compass. You don't see your own weaknesses. You never consider the fact that like they're actually taking advantage of you. So yeah, there's not a lot of snobs in Xinjiang, and that's cool. Even though the other day it was the first time I ever had one of these sort of like impromptu confrontations with just a. You know, in Nanjing, you always get the people who are trying to step up to you, and you know, the people with low esteem and feel like basically they're going to harass you openly in public, and you get that in China, a lot of places. You know, the people they're going to say something to you, just like a young guy who feels sort of inefficient as a man. They're going to try and sort of catcall. You know, like in the ghettos, you know, black neighborhoods. Like a black dude will call you out. They don't expect. They're trying to like intimidate you, you know. And so if you don't step up to them, they figure they kind of got something for their intimidation. I'm not a person to sort of take that lightly when I know I'm in a position not to. So it's something you be aware of. You don't get a lot of that here in Xinjiang. Most of the people are snobs like that, or I don't feel like the need for it. But you'll decide to sort of say something that caught me sort of, that was intended to sort of rub me the wrong way. Another thing about, what do we got here? Blah, 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 my job. I've been pretty happy with it. You know, I like the kids. And it's nice now that I have my own class, you know, that I'm starting a semester off with a new class instead of, like last semester I was kind of coming in mid-semester, so I was kind of picking up where somebody left off. So I was kind of trying to reintroduce a whole new operation in a system that I didn't, you know, maybe that they weren't familiar with. And that's always difficult to do. It's nice now that I've kind of set up a system with this, you know, with the new class. I've kind of set up the way that class is going to operate best. If they don't do that, it's, you know, and so far it's been effective, you know, in getting the class, making the class productive. I'm happy with the material. I'm happy with how I'm sort of organizing my lessons. I think they're pretty effective. They're based on, you know, the curriculum that I'm provided. Sort of enhance it, and they're there to sort of complement it. And I feel it's been pretty effective. I like the kids. They're pretty receptive to the material. They're pretty receptive to my teaching, and so that's something that I'm happy with. I'm also happy with the fact that I'm also able to, you know, I've been able to develop my ability to present it here, the same material that I've been developing and presenting to a classroom. I've been able to also present here on this channel. So that's a great thing. The trail, yeah, I was out there on the trail the last few days. It's in rough shape. The wood plank, the raised platform part of the trail is in real rough shape. They went through there the rainy season came along, and a lot of it got flooded out and took a lot of damage, and we went through there, and they did a really big repair on it, right? And then it dried out, and all the board buckled, and it's not treated lumber for the most part, so it all just kind of buckled and rotted away. And there's actually a lot more missing. It's even more treacherous than it was. It's in worse shape than when they repaired it right now. So I'm sort of, that's kind of disheartening. I'm certainly, they put a lot of effort into sort of maintaining that trail. They put in a nice section of sort of cement board, steps and stuff down in the lower sections, but a lot of it just got rotted away. It's in rough shape. Along with that, I made this out today. I was kind of thinking, I go hiking on that trail quite frequently, and I was kind of comparing it to, my experiences in the wilderness of New York and the Adirondack Mountains, and in Colorado and out west in the deserts and things like that. And I was trying to find an adjective to describe the Chinese landscape. And a scruffy. China is a scruffy landscape. It's just a scruffy land. Well, I guess that's because there's not a very high canopy of woods. The mountains are kind of small, like rocky and jagged. A lot of sort of brush, very dense brush, where it hasn't been sort of traversed. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of a scruffy place. Scruffy, China's scruffy. It's kind of old and dusty. It's scruffy. But, I enjoy it. I enjoy being out there on the trail. That being said. And I guess the last note here is kind of going to maybe tie back into this Nanjing trip here and the idea of my relationships here. It's gotten to the point where I'm just kind of sick of it. It's just kind of sick of it. I spent 10 years here, and I knew it was always an inordinary sort of. I knew I was being sort of isolated or marginalized to a great degree. For whatever. I was being treated different, because a lot of the things that were prevalent in sort of relationships was being sort of, newly like they were changing their perspective on those things. Like it didn't matter if you speak Chinese or not, for a relationship between a Chinese girl and a Western guy. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter, and it doesn't matter for the most part if they know, especially when the Chinese girl knows English. But suddenly it was like that was a statement. No, you got to know Chinese. That's just it's not. It was never like that until I started sort of pursuing a relationship. Being older, and I was in my 40s. For most of my 40s, and that wasn't an issue either. That was actually kind of something that would give you more attract. You made you more attractive that you're older, and yet no, he's kind of old, and China young girl, China older guy. That's not totally wrong. It never was wrong. That was never a problem. But when it came to me. That was something you got to kind of point out. And all that time, it was like you're going through all this kind of neglect where, in a relationship, you kind of feed off each other, and you can kind of, that's how you kind of go about sort of enhancing yourself and building up your sort of perception and projecting a sort of a confidence in your social relations, confidence in your social position, confidence in your, how you're seen. How you looked upon, and all the while I kind of knew that they were kind of chipping away. It's like something like, let's attack it, because this guy's saying, he has all these things. That's arrogant. He's older, and that's considered. Well, let's attack that. That's not something he should be arrogant about. He's got that's not something he should be arrogant about. It was just all those. And along with that, and because I was going to relationships knowing what I wanted and being and willing to make decisions that were going to create bad feelings because I wasn't going to be resigned to accepting a relationship that wasn't going to help me meet goals that are part of a relationship that I feel really important to me in a relationship. Because I wasn't willing to accept that or going to resign myself to just taking whatever's available to me. There was this idea that I was creating bad feelings, and therefore I needed to be punished for that too. Like you're not just resigning yourself to whatever you're given, whatever comes your way or whatever you sort of you engage, you're not resigning to that, and you're not taking the first deal on the table or whatever, And therefore, you are creating bad feelings. So what's happens is when you finally find someone, you're like, yeah, this is what I'm looking for, and this is what, and that would, certainly pertains to Li Xing to some degree. At this point, there's certain aspects of him that I just find completely repulsive as a human being. That lack of moral compass and the lack of consideration is just certainly a despicable trait of someone, of anyone. I would hate to endorse that. I'd hate to be somebody who was her partner or companion and saying, you know what, yeah, you're doing the right thing. You're being a good person by not showing those people consideration, by treating them like crap. You're doing a good thing, and I will protect you. I wouldn't protect you at all. So you get out there and deal with whatever you just put the turd you just dropped. You can clean your own crap up, kid, at this age. But anyway, yeah. So this creates this idea that you need to be punished for it, and so you find that person that fits you, and they're like, well, look at all that bad feelings you created on so and so and so and so. Just because you wanted something more or something that wasn't going to fulfill your needs. That could have fulfilled your needs, and so I'm going to punish you. And it's just well, what they said. You're old enough to clean up your own crap, and if you're not going to do that, you might as well go back to the crib. So yeah. I guess that's pretty much it for the idyllic and the nine. And let's take a look at the video here. Okay. So like I said, I went out to Nanjing, and here what you're seeing here in the video right now is this Madong area, which is by the Zhangmeng Gate. I found a very nice hotel that's really hostile there. I think it's the only sort of accommodations in this area. It's right next to the Gate of China, and that's one of my favorite places here. One of my favorite sites in Nanjing. And here's a restaurant here I ate at. It's called Motu Burger. Good stuff. They made a really good burger, a decent draft beer, a really good draft beer on tap. And it was only 119 kwai. That there is one of the gates. This guy here, you can't see him here, he's a spy, and basically he's the guy they sent to make sure I left and I'm leaving because I said some harsh things towards their CCP girl. And here's me leaving here, taxiing on the runway. This is Xiamen Airlines. I took Xiamen Airlines from Nanjing back to Xinjiang. Xiamen Airlines doesn't get a lot of traffic because this part of China, Fujian, over here, Chongzhou, it's not a really sort of heavy traffic flight. It's cheaper actually than taking a train. If I had taken a train, the fast train still would have been 8 hours. This flight was only an hour and 40 minutes, and it was actually cheaper than the train. So the only thing I can think of is people are scared to take it. Xiamen Airlines is decent, I would say. I mean, it's a domestic flight. They don't get a lot of traffic, so they're not one of the richer domestic flights. But they did provide, in an hour and 40-minute flight, they provided a full meal, a full hot meal. And that's kind of, I wouldn't expect that certainly in a lot of domestic flights in the United States or other places in the world. I would expect peanuts and soda or something like that. I'd get a whole meal. This I've flown on them a couple of times. One time the plane was a little bit shabby, a little bit worn out. This time the plane was actually quite it was a little bit more newer, a little bit cleaner. This one, a little more updated. It's still not too shabby at all. I think you gotta give me a second here. We'll take a video on the on the way, here it is. Here's the meal. So they give you like a Jello and some pickles and a bun or muffin, some hot rice dish here, lotus beef, some water. That's it's not the greatest. It wasn't the greatest food. It wasn't a great meal, but. So it wasn't the greatest meal, but it was it was a full meal, and it wasn't very tasty. I'm not going to complain too much about that. This is the Shenzhen flight that I took down Nanjing. I've flown on them a couple of times before, and I always was impressed. Well, actually, one of my first domestic flights was Shenzhen Airlines. And, I was, so I'm trying to do something here, and so Shenzhen Airlines is it's pretty good. I've always they serve a full meal, and what was surprising about it this time though is they served a cold meal. And this is very because it's kind of one of the antithesis of Chinese culture, like cold food. It has to be cooked for many reasons, and so they served a cold meal. They served like sandwiches, and they served a chicken sandwich, and that was kind of quite unique because like in China, you just don't get cold food. It's certainly more efficient. One of my coworkers seems to have a problem. It's one of those situations when they want to do what they want to do. Let's see here. This is one of the one of the South African teachers. He wants me to give him material, even though I work for the school. They give me to me for materials so they can work elsewhere. I'm happy to help them out, but I kind of feel like they need to. He had actually arranged with me to come over some time ago. For some materials, and then he didn't bother to call me, said he wasn't going to come, and then now he's calling me about a week later, so he wants to come over and get him right now, but I don't even know that video. And to tell you the truth, he really should be kind of developing his own material, but I'm trying to help as much as I can. Here's the hostel I stayed at. This is a place called the Garden of the Quays Hotel. It's really a hostel. It's not a hotel, but a lot of the hotels in China or hostels in China, you can get a single room. And that's what I did here. And this place, it looked like it used to be quite luxurious, but it was kind of starting to be a little worn out. And I say it looked like it used to be studio apartments. It's a nice place. It's worth the money. I would totally recommend it to anybody who's kind of visiting Nanjing and just kind of looking for a nice location. This Meidong area is really nice. It's all new. The hotel, like I said, it looked like it used to be studio apartments because the single room that I had like a loft, and you couldn't get up to it. There was no ladder or any way of doing it, but it had a very high ceiling and like a loft area over the bed, a platform, and so it was obviously a student apartment before Richard converted it to a hostel. It had all the amenities. You had your toothbrushes, and you had your tea, you had your Wi-Fi, and slippers, and things like that. Things like shampoo and body wash. It wasn't your typical. It was like, I don't know. It was something I would consider like leftovers. You see this a lot in hostels, kind of deal, where a lot of people just leave behind shampoo and stuff like that, full bottles. So what you ended up with in this particular hostel was like a full bottle that was just people using, every visitor would use. You can see why a lot of hotels don't do that, and they do single individual sort of amenities rather than that kind of thing. The hostel is a hostel. But they also give you They gave you a free breakfast, which was nice. Like a ham sandwich. They had congee. They had tea, eggs, coffee, juice, stuff like that, for free. And they also did a complimentary drink. The reception area is really kind of a cafe, kind of bar area. You can get drinks there, mixed drinks and alcohol. You can get some light foods there, snack foods, things like that. It was cool. I like the place. The location is like 100% though. It's a great part of town. This area, when I was back in 2016, 2015, that area was just being built and finished up. But it's all just kind of like boutiques and bistros and cafes and restaurants and bars and kind of cool, all in a kind of very cool architecture that ties in with the Gate of China, the ancient wall there. And it's all sort of another aspect of it is you'll see a lot of people in cosplay in these areas, and this is kind of what you're seeing here. This area is around the Nanjing area. There's two things there. There's these little sort of studios where you can go in and rent a costume and do up your makeup and everything, and you can walk around the Nanjing area in old courtesan outfits, gowns and things like that, dressed up like a Chinese courtesan. I don't know why you want to do that, because they're basically court whores, but a lot of the young people fancy this idea of the romantic aspect of it. They see it through all the drawings and stuff like that. So they'll be strolling around this area in their traditional Chinese wear, ancient Chinese gowns and things like that. And it's kind of cool to see that. It's like cosplay. It's like going to a science fiction convention or a comic book convention or something like that, I guess. There's a lot of like little art galleries in there, like I said, boutiques and things like that. Also out here though, there's like what are typically known as kind of like massage, prostitution, and brothels, little brothels that look like hairdressers, basically. And I know this because when I first arrived in China, I went out looking for a haircut in Jiangxi province, in Fuzhou and Jiangxi province, and looking for to get my haircut. And I saw all these like little parlors where there was definitely like a barber chair, a hair salon chair, and a mirror. And there was all these couches and things where women were just kind of sprawled out on them. And I was like, that doesn't look like they cut hair. And eventually I ran into a police officer, a woman police guy. She was like the madame of that area. And she was like, yeah, I patrol, this is my area. Like, you're like the madam of all these women, aren't you? And then all of a sudden all the women came out and they were touching my chest hair and things like that. And I was like, nah, I just want a haircut. You'll see it. Bye. And so that's how I became familiar with that aspect. And it's kind of funny that they surround this area. They're all around this Nanjing area. And there's a lot of residential homes in here, the concrete buildings that people live in without proper insulation or anything like that. Very cold concrete. building. Nanjing gets quite cold also, I would say. It's not as warm as where I am currently located. And here is entering the Dong area. So the gate here. Lots of tourists. Jelly, rice jelly, gelatinous. Red bean and like wheat congee and things like that. They had combinations that was, I'd never really kind of come across it before, but they would make combinations with these kind of traditional Chinese desserts, you know, and it was almost like an ice cream sundae. But I tried that there. And it was okay. It was kind of a different thing. If you're familiar with like Chinese taste buds and, you know, like taro root was in there and stuff like that. You know, it's not like you're super sweet. It's more kind of a less refined kind of sweetness. But it was kind of interesting. I'm glad I had that dish along with the motu burger was definitely a standout. And I guess that's just about it. You know, I don't know. Is there anything else I want to point out here? Lots of little boutiques in here. Lots of unique gifts. There's a like an opera house in here also. I was kind of gonna sit in on that, but I just didn't get the opportunity. I just went up there for 3 days. Like I said, my intention was to hopefully see Yixing again. I went up there with an ultimatum. I said, if you're not gonna meet me, you know, I've waited years. I've gone without like human contact, you know, with other with females for years, just because I was kind of anticipating seeing you again and hoping that you would have this sort of, you would have that kind of, you would feel the same way about somebody who went that, you know, who was that serious. You would feel some sort of responsibility about a relationship that you were engaged in, to recognize that they have made at least that effort for your sake, that they are trying to create a value, you know, like they are bending over backwards. I mean, there's a million reasons why I could have dismissed Li Sheng, you know, and she had very few reasons to dismiss me, you know, very few reasons to dismiss me, you know. She had a child, I should have dismissed her for that. She had, you know, so many reasons that I could have dismissed this woman, but I was still like, well, you know, let me see what this kind of person is, you know, and just lousy. It's completely lousy, you know, selfish human being that doesn't deserve any sort of redemption for the way they could disregard a person's efforts towards them. Anyway, so here's just the area. If you walk down this area, that's where you're going to find the hotel. Lots of different sort of statues and things. That's about it. I guess we'll wrap it up there. This is Dollar Store Dynasty. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's some things you can take out of it. I was going to talk about, you know, I would say for next time, CCP girls, you know, you gotta kind of like be aware of that here. A lot of the women, people who get married and stuff like that, they're just kind of marrying CCP girls, you know. If it's not them, it's their family, and there's some sort of, you know, there's some sort of hidden agenda involved there to make them, give them stature always at the expense of your stature for the most part. But I think that's good enough. We're gonna wrap things up with this episode. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments you'd like to make, please do so in the comment section below. I look forward to reading them, or look forward to hearing from others and their experiences or their points of view, their opinions. That's kind of what this is all about. And if I felt the need for it, I certainly would be live streaming to have a conversation with my viewers. Also, if you would click like and subscribe to this channel, I'd really appreciate it. I've been making this content for quite a long time now, and I feel it's certainly something I have to put the time aside and make the efforts for it, and I certainly will appreciate the recognition. And otherwise, we'll talk to you later. Thank you for watching, and catch you next time. Dynasty. Talk to you later. I wanna hear it in the night.